Hello, I am not Xarkun, but we are in World of Warships Legends. Hey guys, Tomboy601. A little bit of a mix-up today in the channel. Xarkun, well, you may know him as a fellow community contributor of mine. We're doing a bit of a footage swap today. I have this wonderful nail-biter of a game in the Suzuya from him, and he has a wonderful Kraken in a Tennessee from me. So if you want to see that, be sure to go over to his video, but not before you watch this video. He is an excellent creator, and he is only about 50 subs away from breaking 4,000 subs. So please go over there, tell him I sent you over, and enjoy his rather excellent content that he puts out on a nearly daily basis. It is some of the most informative content you'll get in the World of Warships section. Always knowing your armor and your pens, and he does a great job of knowing the game by the numbers. And you should absolutely go and visit Xarkun if you want an extra person to go ahead and watch out here. Anyways, Xarkun is in the Suzuya. We are here on Neighbors, and he had the fortune of, I believe, a mid-spawn, but he's going to be playing this left-hand side, of course. In Neighbors, you're not really looking to go mid unless you're a destroyer or unless we are in the domination mode, this being capture the base. It's pretty much going to turn down to be a deathmatch. We do have one of our destroyers, the Fletcher, out there playing very forward and advanced and spotting the enemy destroyers. Xarkun making sure to concentrate on the destroyers when they pop up. Of course, they are a priority target when you can get to them and when you can see them, and Xarkun is doing a good job as far as knowing where they are and concentrating on them. And our friendly Fletcher is doing an excellent job forcing them to pop their smoke, forcing those destroyers to disengage. I would say that about this Benson, but now he appears to be engaging more. I'm not sure he understands just how many people are concentrating on him, because he is already wiped out on the map. As far as commanders go, from what I can tell, I believe Xarkun is running AL Atago. Just based on the damage numbers I'm seeing from the HE shells and the fire chances in this game, that is my guess as to what we are dealing with as far as a commander build goes. Now, luckily Xarkun has his spotter plane, or in this case the fighter plane, up, which is acting as a spotter, and the friendly destroyers have laid the smoke screen, allowing him to kind of bring up a little bit more. We do know that on the enemy team there is an Edinburgh, and it has popped smoke and is sitting there, and the enemy Suzuya has kind of pulled the hermit crab and decided to take over said smoke. But sadly, that smoke is running out. Xarkun lining up the torps to go into the smoke in case it was lasting longer or if they didn't want to dodge. And we can see a crossfire of torpedoes. Xarkun now having to pick his target, prioritizing the Suzuya, mainly probably because it does do a whole lot more damage per minute. It is definitely the more deadly piece on the map, and also it's sailing flat broadside, which means you have access to that citadel, and you're going to be able to get the AP on in. As we can see, we are getting penetrations, we just haven't quite found that citadel. Now, that Suzuya is going for a flank, sort of taking himself out of the match. If we can look, none of the ships are out on that side. He has decided that he's had enough. He's going to take his toys home and play some other day, leaving his teammate, the Edinburgh, all up by himself. Now, while we've been doing this, if you haven't been paying attention to the left side of the map or up on the top of the screen, you may not have noticed just how hard Xarkun's team has been slapped. In fact, the whole right flank has pretty much collapsed for all but 2 players, and that it does not bode well, as most of the time these capture the enemy base modes end up being a deathmatch of sorts, and Xarkun's team is currently at a 2-ship deficit. Torpedoes look like they're on target. Edinburgh tries to make a dodge, but takes one of the torpedoes right on the nose. Xarkun's now going to go ahead and start firing that HE, trying to get that fire because we know that Embera just used its damage con, which means if we can get a fire started, we can guarantee a fire. And by the time we finish firing at it, it's pretty much all but guaranteed to be a sunk at Embera. And as we can see, 1 shot, 2 shots, I believe we get a fire here, and we are now seeing a crossfire of torpedoes, which does take it out. And thank goodness that Fletcher really doing the work. And this is the second time he's sort of had a crossfire with torpedoes, and that Fletcher is doing an excellent job. A ship you don't oftentimes think to be a sort of torpedo boat, but this Fletcher is using his torpedoes to the maximum effect, and he's really shown off. He's understanding when he can engage, when he can't engage, and this is going to be very important in the moments coming up, because all that is left on the enemy team is 4 cruisers and 1 battleship, and you don't tend to want to get in a gunfight with cruisers. Maybe fire at those battleships while concealed in smoke, but either way, being caught out in the water, those guns aren't going to do him too much good other than maybe exposing his position. Also, we can go ahead and note we are now down to a 3v5 scenario, with 1 teammate being chased down by what appears to be at least 4 other teammates that Helena all out there. Now, at this point, Xarkun notices Suzuya from earlier has decided to finally pop up, and he's going to become the priority. And that's because, well, if everyone is coming from one direction and then you have this one random ship off to the side, well, that random ship is most likely going to have the better crossfire at you. So you want to go ahead and prioritize him. Also, he's currently the only one in range, but this Belfast is coming in. Xarkun goes ahead, starts engaging the Belfast, and keeps an eye on that red sister Suzuya, launching torpedoes on his predicted path, assuming that he's gonna go ahead and kind of take the most direct route when trying to sail behind this island and get into a new position. Sadly, though, he did adjust course at one point, and being that he was already firing at what was the extremity of the range for those torpedoes, sadly they do sail on through, but Belfast can still be hit, but it's going to be a struggle just because that Belfast is out on the outer limits of the range, and that means unless it's really kind of staying parallel to you, it's a tough shot to hit, especially in these HE slingers because of how high that arc is. Any sort of movement from the Belfast, he's going to get out of range. And sometimes you even, when he's at that sort of range, you won't be able to hit just because the arc of the shell takes so long that the ship kind of moves out of that maximum range by the time the shell lands. Suzuya pops up from the rear and is broadside. So first salvo out is going to be HE. And surprisingly, their Suzuya had the same idea to launch torps, but they were a little widespread. So by the time they get to Xarkun, not exactly the most effective ammunition. Xarkun switching over to AP because Suzuya appeared to not really care that he was sailing broadside. Of course, it happens to us all. When you switch over to AP, target swings out wide as if to give you broadside for you to then have HE loaded. And you know that always happens. It's one of those things that just happens in this game. Xarkun decides to stick with the HE. Enemy Suzuya sailing straight in. Not really sure his strategy here. Now we can see it. It's for the secondary torpedo launch. But when you are broadside like that, you are going to give up a lot of your health. Suzuya takes a 4K salvo, and we're going to see a finishing one right here as 2 Citadel hits take him down. Sadly, Xarkun does now have 2 permanent fires going, as that Suzuya was able to set some last fires before going out. Xarkun popping the repair party as well to try to mitigate as much damage as possible, and another HE slinger decides that long range is the best range when firing against another cruiser, and that Atlanta B decides, we're in open water, there's now only 2 of them, it's time to get a little reckless, and Atlanta decides it's time to start chasing down. Fletcher notices that that Xarkun is taking the hits, opens up to shift Atlanta's attention, and leads him beautifully into the torps, taking down that Atlanta and bringing it to a 2v3 showdown. Now, Kutuzov is the only ship in range for Xarkun, so that is who he is going to engage. Kutuzov, being on full health, decides he needs to bring all his guns to bear on Xarkun, which means he will happily sail flat broadside for a long time right here. Xarkun switches over to AP because, as we've already seen, if a cruiser's gonna give you broadside, you might as well take advantage of it. And this is good because we're going to get a 5K salvo there, another salvo out, and we will see what this one does. 6K, there we go. Kutuzov more than happy to get chunked down, it appears, just because he wants to have all his guns on target, and it doesn't even appear that he wants to take any sort of evasive maneuvers, or maybe he's just trying to get a little deeper into the cap. Xarkun switches over to HE just to see if, after that last salvo where a couple of bounces were there, what HE will do to Kutuzov, and we get a significantly lower chunk of damage because, of course, we're going to start to need to hit the Kutuzov only in the bridge in the upper superstructure. That's because Kutuzov does have 26mm armor plating, and sadly 152mm is not going to quite do the job to get damage done on that sort of armor plating. It is one of the sad things for the Japanese ships. They do not have access to EOP, usually not really a problem for the Japanese ships, as the majority of the other Japanese cruisers are heavy cruisers and therefore don't really need to rely on quick, fast loading, HE spamming sort of designs. Suzuya being the unique one, and it can mean that these Russian ships, when angled correctly, as we saw right there, can severely limit the DPM of these ships, especially when that captain knows what they're doing. This Kutuzov, though, not liking only having 2 of his guns on target, decides that broadside once again is the way to go, and he decides that getting citadeled is the best plan for him, and he goes ahead and goes down, bringing the match down to a 2v2 with only 2 minutes left in the match. That Belfast has seemed to really disengage from this match. I can't really see him being spotted, which either A, he decided to smoke up for some reason and is sitting in his smoke in the hopes that ships push into him, or he's decided on a brave and cunning tactic in order to try to outsmart someone, or he's just decided to run figure eights in the background. We really don't know, but what we do know is we do have an enemy battleship. Now, I know when I play this late into a match, I'm always like, okay, I haven't seen this battleship yet. It's this far into the match. He has to be somewhat damaged, right? Like, that's the one thing you always look for. You're like, oh, let's see what kind of health I have to deal with. And poor Xarkun right here has a full health Colorado. And sadly for him, he does not have any easily held islands that he can take cover behind to start spamming him down and be able to hide behind. Of course, Colorado's massive guns will not care for any of the armor that Xarkun has, and any of those shells will pretty much overmatch him and take large chunks of health. But at this point, it is either take the Colorado down or lose the match. And we can see that Fletcher once again doing an amazing job as Xarkun turns in and takes a nearly 5K salvo from, or a 5K hit, single hit from the Colorado. But that Fletcher lines up the torps perfectly, and that Colorado turns wide, and well, he doesn't have much health remaining, lights his repair party, and after that, Xarkun sets a double fire on him, all but dooming him to the bottom of the sea. Colorado takes what will be his last shot, because by the time the 30 seconds for his reload takes place, the match will be all but over, and with Chew Fires, that health will most likely be gone with only 13 seconds remaining. We can also see that if we don't sink the Colorado, Xarkun will lose with the points. Thankfully, he takes the Colorado. That gives us the 100-point swing in the points, giving Xarkun the win. And that, my friends, is a great match in the Suzuya. And that is a game from Xarkun. If you like what you saw here, make sure you go visit him. He's an excellent content creator. And make sure you tell him I sent you guys. Have a great rest of your day. See ya.